I went on the state police in 1966. I was the 47th Recruit Training Troop. At the time in Framingham, where the headquarters is today, there was Quonset huts, World War II Quonset huts. And so that's where we spent our 16 weeks. My first assignment was in Lee. And I was very fortunate to have two people that broke me in. They were great troopers, and both from as investigators as well as road troopers. It really set this tone for my career in the state police. That was Trooper Eddie Jerzyk and James Hunter. So they were great people. My education was really completed after I went on the state police. I entered the academy as age 20. I turned 21 in the academy, and then but I was able to earn a Bachelor of Science in Criminal Justice from Northeastern University, a Master's in Science from American International College in Springfield in Criminal Justice, and I also earned a Master's in Business Administration from Anna Maria College. So it was all of that was very helpful for me as I moved through the ranks in the department. My career really extended. I spent 12 years in field, and I was 10 and a half years as a trooper. The other years were really as I was a corporal and then a sergeant on the 55 team, as well as at the Brookfield Barracks. I started my career, the first call for service that I went to up in Lee, it was a double fatal, two 17-year-old first cousins. And it was really one thing that I really had a concern about. Could I do the job, as seeing things that most people would abhor? So, and I ended my career with two double fatals on the turnpike with two 16-year-old first cousins in a stolen car that crashed, and two 74-year-old mothers-in-law who were on their way to deliver Christmas presents to their children. So it was I understood really well, the duties of a state police officer. And then I spent 2 years at the traffic section. They trained me at Northwestern University as to learn all aspects of selective enforcement and traffic management. Upon achieving the rank of staff sergeant, and I was about to get promoted to lieutenant, I was assigned to the research and development unit. I spent 8 years there, and then subsequently I was promoted to major for 2 years, lieutenant colonel for 2 years, and then I was the deputy superintendent for my last 4 years, from 1992 to 1996. So I enjoyed going to work every day. It was just, to me, it was just a great career. The most challenging thing that I did in the state police was my last 4 years. And that was overseeing consolidation from 1992 to 1996. And that there was substantial progress that was made during that time. And consolidation had it was legislation that passed that required that happen for that to happen, and it was a very challenging time for everybody. They set out requirements that in the legislation, the things that had to get completed from January of 92 to June of 92, every one of those were completed, and that on time. That was in-service training for everybody, new policy and procedures, new rules and regulations, specialized training that had to occur for certain members. And so it was It was a challenge, but every goal that was set out for us was met. One of the things that we recognized early on, and I think both myself and Colonel Henderson recognized, we had some great people in the agency, and it was really a untapped resource to moving the department forward. One thing that we wanted to do was to increase our communication so that everybody knew what was happening during those 4 years, and that they weren't going to rely on rumors, because rumors, as you know, can be harmful. So we set out, we did a monthly newsletter of all the things that were happening in the agency. We did a quarterly unit station commander meeting up at New Braintree at the new academy, and then we also did daily command staff meetings, so that just to find out what was happening the day before. So these were not optional; these were mandatory things that we felt, to communicate with everybody in the agency. Governor Weld actually turned over to the new academy up in New Braintree, which was going to be, it was a private school that was, Governor Dukakis was going to make a corrections facility out of it, and that because of opposition from the neighbors, they were looking for a new facility to put out there, and we approached them with the idea that would be a great facility for the academy, and then ultimately was turned over to us. 760 acres of land, over 20 buildings, over 20 classrooms. It had all the things you would want to have in a great facility, and that we went in there. Lieutenant Phil Trapasso provided great leadership for those 4 years in developing the academy, as well as instituting new technology within the academy itself. There was for the first time there was an IT classroom, computer classroom, and it just was the development went outstanding. There were a couple things we had funded at the very end that ultimately were completed, which was the firearms training facility, which is really an outstanding facility. We also did that exchange. Why we moved the academy out to New Braintree, one of the reasons was that the old academy, which had been built in the 1970s in Framingham, that was actually turned into a new headquarters, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. But there's the first class up in New Braintree. They had a new curriculum, a greater use of the all elements of training. And we had a group of state and provincial academy directors that came there in 1993. We had hosted them for their annual meeting. We had them review the academy, and what they told us, that not only did we have one of the greatest facilities in the country, actually they said it was number one. Nobody had seen an academy like that, as well as the content that was actually being taught there. So we were very happy to get that feedback from them. In addition to those major facilities, we had done an exchange with the Department of Transportation for the land where the Peabody Barracks had been built, which was really an undersized station, and we were able to, they turned over to us the Danvers facility, which became, it was large enough for, it had a fleet garage, it had space for the substation in Danvers that the Peabody Barracks went to. The troop headquarters in A Troop was moved there, as well as a number of other investigative and administrative functions. So it was a great opportunity for the department. So that was an exchange that was accomplished during that time. One of the other challenges that we faced in 1992, that our entire fleet had an average of 170,000 miles. So every day was a challenge. We had cruisers responding to incidents that would actually not only stop working, but they'd go on fire. So it was a really challenging time. By 1996, we had replaced the entire fleet and then some. So the fleet average was 40,000 miles. So that was a huge benefit. There was a number of programs that were built, that were created during that time. One was the gang unit that still exists today, that was established, to assist with, the cities and towns where gangs were quite prevalent, and that the gang units were assigned to those locations. There was also a zero tolerance program that was put into Springfield, Brockton, and Lawrence. Those were uniform officers. It was a team operation working late at night, and but they did a great job during that time, and that so it was the first time that we had done a uniform enforcement activity in the cities for any length of time. There was also during that time community policing projects were funded by the Department of Justice. We had some 70 troopers that were paid for through a grant for the community policing. Community policing projects were established throughout the state. And one thing that made all of that work was we incorporated a total quality management, which was really a West Point model that we learned about from the New York State Police, and that it established a method of being able to solve problems and to anticipate problems. So it was really ultimately a great program. And I wanted to mention one program as an example that the Crime Scene Services program. Up until that time, the crime scene had been done by photography and fingerprinting. In essence, they had the training and the expectation of just doing dusting for fingerprints, as well as for taking pictures of crime scenes. And they changed all of that, and that was really through their initiative. These were, I mentioned first that we had great people in our agency, and that they came up with the method. Our job was to really help them find the resources to do that. It was we were extremely happy with the progress, and they continue making that progress through today. That program started with, there was a lieutenant, actually ultimately Captain George McDougall, but he had some great people working there. Brian O'Hara, Kenny Martin, and I don't want to miss any of the names, but there was just a great group of people that wanted to do things that really wanted to move the entire agency forward, and with their crime scene capability. That still is done that way today, and that's one of the reasons why today we have one of the highest murder solved rates in the country. For the last 5 years, it's been the average has been 94% solved crime rates. The average nationwide is 50%. So, and that's crime scene services, as well as investigator training and expectations of investigators has been a real benefit of that. We engaged with Northwestern University, the Traffic Institute, to do a staffing study. That the methodology had been developed with the International Association of Chiefs of Police, and as well as Northwestern University and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. Yeah, that was that found during that time in 1994 when they completed that project. It was they identified a need for some 270 additional staff. So, but that was one of the reasons why we were able to get the funding to complete 4 classes during that time, and just under 600 new officers were hired from 1992 to 1996. So, they, to offset the retirements that we would see, so as well as make progress in moving forward. The need for computer-aided dispatch as well as records management, and ultimately there was a funding element. There was a capital bond that was funded by June of 1996, and ultimately that project was put on hold subsequently after I retired. So I don't really know exactly what happened to that, but there was a radio system got funded. And I'll tell you that in my time, it was a low-band radio system for the state police. I did not have, in my entire career, I did not have a portable radio. So not only are you working alone, but you didn't have a portable radio that you can call for assistance. And ultimately, using the 800 radio system for that had been developed by the MDC police, that was incorporated statewide, and it was just a huge benefit. And ultimately, it took a number of years and a lot of money to actually to implement that in all of the troops in all of the areas of the state. And then ultimately, that is the backbone for the statewide, public safety radio system, and they're still making progress on that. So that has been incorporated into other areas where local police departments are using it, where their systems, were not functioning as well. So, but anyhow, it's those are some of the things that have happened, during consolidation. And my role there was, to everything from grants development to which we were highly successful during that time, of particularly for traffic safety programs that's funded by the Governor's Highway Safety Bureau, and we did 55 enforcement that had been continued. The traffic section had started that, and that during that time, the 55 teams, as you may remember, that those were in place from 1975, actually right through 1996, and that they were highly successful. In 1978, they were actually increased from 25 to 75 statewide. It was a team effort in every troop. They were great visibility. Public education increased substantially. The media were able to pick up on the outreach with the teams, and that the reality was that speed did go down during that time. This is when you went from 65 to 55, and that accidents and accident had decreased. We worked with National Highway Traffic Safety Administration for an evaluation of the program, and that what they found was that there was a decrease in 1975 through 1978. They did a time series analysis on that, where they broke the state into 55 roads to non-55 state roads, as well as local municipal roadway systems, and that there was a difference between that reduction on the 55 roads where the teams were operating. So it was a highly successful program that has reduced speed and reduced crashes, particularly personal injury and fatal crashes on the 55 roads. So we're very happy about that. And some of my other duties were developing policy and procedures, as well as preparing annual reports, for at the time it was commissioners, and that, so it was, the duties range from looking at staffing, looking at, training and new technologies, so that, if there was an idea that the commissioner may have, or that we had, that, we'd be able to try that out. So those are some of the duties that I had. Every station I was at, that it was like you got reinvigorated, because every station is different. And then once I got into the traffic section, and or the 55 team, and then the traffic section, and then R&D, it was just each one of them I learned something new. So that it really, every one of those steps prepared me for ultimately, once I went on to the command staff and ultimately the deputy superintendent. Well, the first time I actually saw the state police, I grew up in Worcester, so you didn't really see state police in Worcester at that time. The highway wasn't built at 290 off 195 or any of those other major roads. So the first time I saw them was at the Spencer Fair, which I'm not even sure if it's still there anymore, but they had state police canines, which were bloodhounds. So I was pretty impressed with that, just to see that, and they gave some examples of that. But that was the first time. And then ultimately, I was driving home one night, and in the first car I ever had, and it was and I heard an advertisement for anybody interested in taking the state police exam. So I went to the Holden Barracks. I was 20, and I looked 15. So the trooper on the desk said, "Geez, I'm not sure. How old are you?" And I told him 20, and he said, "I'm not sure if they'll accept your application, but I'll give it to you anyhow, and you can send it in." I said, "Thank you very much." So ultimately, the rest is history on the state police. It takes a concerted effort. And it's not just enforcement. It's public education. It's public information. It's really all of those things that are going to change behavior. And you really have to think about it as, any behavior that you really want to change, whether you're in school or, you're looking at other crime, and that it's those things that collectively can change behavior. For state police, it's the public information, it's the visibility, it's the public education efforts that they would do, and ultimately it changed behavior. State police role in these rural communities is really quite different. Out of the Lee Barracks, there were some 16 towns. 12 of them, state police provided full or part-time coverage. The 4 of them had full-time PDs. And there was one night we got called down to one of the police departments that had a full-time police department, but they wanted some backup at a person that had shot a neighbor, and that and he was in a house with his wife and armed, and so they wanted some assistance at that. So myself, as well as 2 other troopers and a corporal that went down, to assist. We spoke with the chief, and there was 1 or 2 other officers from their department. So the last thing the corporal said to me is, "Look, don't go in there." He said, "We're going to try to talk with the person." Well, next thing you know, I was on one side of the house, and I see the chief go into the back door. So the quandary was, would I do what the corporal said, or would I need to go in there just to back up the chief? So I did, and went into the house. The chief went left, I went right, and within 3 feet, the person that was going to be arrested, who had shot the other person, he was sitting there with a gun on his lap, and obviously I convinced him not to raise the weapon. So I think it has something to do with the fact that, for the first time, being able to use your weapon without firing it. And so that this way it stopped the person from doing what he was going to do. So anyhow, that was probably one of those incidents. And the corporal was okay with me after that.